Hey guys, it's Darwin here with my weekly Q&A series to answer some more of your questions. If you'd like to ask me some questions for my next week's Q&A, you can either leave them in the comment box below, or you can send me a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com, and then next week I'll answer as many as I possibly can. Alright, so let's get into the first question. I'm a Boy Scout and going on a 100-mile backpacking trip and was wondering what a good lightweight tent would be. So actually I have a couple different options for you. Number one, a really popular lightweight tent that I've seen a lot on the AT, and I think a lot of people carry, is something like the Big Agnes Fly Creek. Either the UL1 or the UL2, depending on how tall you are and how much gear you have. That is a really great option. Usually available just about anywhere. You can find them at REI, probably your local outfitter. But another good option is a tent that I picked up last year for my bikepacking trip on the Arizona Trail, and the tent that I'll be taking out on my section hike of the CDT in a couple weeks, which is the 6 Moons Design Skyscape Trekker. I'll put a link up here in the corner of the review that I did on that tent, and then I'm going to be doing a post review when I get back from the CDT, since I've had a little bit more time with it. This was kind of a pre-review when I first got the tent, but I'm going to be doing a longer review of what I think about it in the long term, so keep an eye out for that. But I think those would be two really solid tents that are lightweight, pretty affordable, and you can find them in most places. 6 Moons Design, you will have to order from 6 Moons Design. So far I'm digging the tent, but I haven't had my final thoughts on it yet, so I'll give you those soon. Hoping to do my first backpacking trip on the AT this year. Just wondering which area would be a good start for just a short 3 to 4 day trip in May or June, either solo or with a buddy. Figured I'd start with baby steps. Thanks, man. So obviously it depends on where you're at in the States, but if I had to pick one section right now to kind of go hike, a really beautiful section, a section that's close to some resupply, would actually be the Smoky Mountains. Before me and Snuggles hiked the AT, we went and hiked a big section in the Smokies. So you could start at something like Fontana Dam that's in North Carolina and hike pretty much all the way through the Smokies with the time that you have, and then maybe even get off at Newfound Gap or something. The other great thing is there's a lot of shuttles around the Smokies, so it would be really easy to kind of park somewhere, have a shuttle to drop you off at the trail, and then pick you up whenever you get done. But that would be my recommendations. Obviously, it also just kind of depends on where you're at. If you're more up north, maybe try something in New Hampshire or something in Maine. Those are hard sections, but absolutely beautiful, and it'll definitely get you hooked on the AT and make you want to do a through hike. Another great section would probably be down in Georgia. Really anywhere in those first couple 100 miles of the AT are absolutely beautiful. A good place for you to get your feet wet, not too hard of terrain, and again, there's a lot of hostels and shuttles and different services that you can get from the AT around that area, so it would be a really good place to start. Just interested to know, did you have any withdrawal symptoms after completing your through hike? If so, how did you deal with them? Yeah, a lot of withdrawal symptoms. So one thing about doing something like a through hike, or maybe it's like a long bike tour or something, is kind of once you remove yourself from that hustle and bustle, that fast-paced society that you deal with every day, and work and paying bills and driving in traffic and stuff like that, it becomes super addicting. You realize how simple and how enjoyable life can be from doing something like a through hike, and then it's really hard to go back to society. I joke a lot and say things like I feel like the Appalachian Trail has ruined my life, and it's ruined my life for the good. So I constantly want to be back out in the woods. I constantly want to be hiking and doing some sort of adventure. Whenever you kind of go back to that regular everyday grind, it becomes very hard to kind of keep focus on that, just because you're constantly thinking about the other things that you can be doing. The other thing that a lot of hikers have, and I had, and we all have, is what's called post-trail depression. So where you get off the trail and you spent 4 to 6 months hiking every day, and then you just kind of become depressed. You become depressed because you're not walking every day. You become depressed because you're doing the same thing. You become depressed because you've been taken out of that environment that you got so connected to and that kind of feels like home. And then kind of from there on forward, it's really, really hard to kind of deal with that regular droning 9 to 5 day of work and driving and paying bills and having an apartment and stuff like that. So, you know, that's one of the reasons that I'm going out to do this section hike of the Continental Divide Trail next month. It's the reason I'm hiking the PCT next year. It's the reason that Snuggles and I are moving into a travel trailer, hitting the road, so we can be closer to that, so we can continue to travel if we want, because the symptoms are real. Again, they kind of ruin your life, and I'm going to be doing a video on that soon, so keep an eye out for that. It'll probably come out within the next couple weeks, but I'll be doing a video on post-trail depression, how to deal with that, and then, you know, some other things that doing a through hike kind of transforms you and kind of turns you into this different person. So keep an eye out for that. Darwin, do you typically cook and eat away from where you sleep to limit unwanted visitors from bears or other animals during the night? What about cooking / food scent in your hair or clothes that may attract them? So that's a great question. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. There's kind of big discussion about that, kind of argument about that. While I was on the AT, there was never a time where I felt like that I was going to get attacked or something if I had food close to my tent. However, just to have those safe backcountry rules, I always do cook away from my tent if I'm eating dinner at night, and then obviously hang my food in a tree pretty far away from my tent. In the morning, I typically eat breakfast in my tent. I'm not too worried about scent on me because wind and stuff can, you know, pretty much blow that away pretty fast. But at night, most of the time, yeah, I do eat away from my tent and try to keep that stuff away, making sure that every night I take all of my food wrappers and any leftover snacks throughout the day out of my hip belts or any of my gear and get that away from my tent. Even stuff like sunscreen, soap, toothpaste, I also put that in my bear bag. Places on the East Coast, you know, you don't have things like grizzlies, which are on the West Coast. You don't have to worry about those hardcore bear attacks, even though there are black bears, but I still try to keep to that rule. When I was on the Arizona Trail in October, I'll be honest, I actually ate a lot of nights inside of my tent. So it kind of depends on where I'm at, really. But a good rule of thumb is to always do that. I mean, that is the smart thing to do, just in case. You know, not even dangerous animals, even raccoons or squirrels or something, mice. It is a good idea to keep food and stuff away from where you're going to be sleeping so you don't get bothered by animals at night. They don't try to chew a hole through your tent, because I've seen that happen. There have been some people out on like the AT in 2015. I remember that a mice chewed through their tent into their pack just to get like a food wrapper from what they had left over for the day. So it is a really good rule of thumb, and I try to do that as much as I possibly can. Darwin, for bike packing, what would you recommend for a tire? I think I will have a used Karate Monkey. Would you use shocks for the front forks? So would I use shocks for the front forks? The most bike packing that I do, no. Which is why I use the hashtag suspension makes you soft. I like a rigid bike. That being said, I do run a rigid bike that has plus tires, so a 3-inch tire that I run pretty low PSI, so it's like having a little bit of suspension in the tire. If it is an older Karate Monkey that is a 29, you're not going to have that option, so it's kind of up to you. It's definitely a personal preference, and the same as it goes with tires. There's a lot of really good tires out there. The tire that I'm currently running is the Maxxis Chronicle. I really, really like Maxxis tires, so the Ardent would be another really good tire to check out from Maxxis that would probably work for your application. Maxxis tires are a little bit more expensive, but they're really tough, they roll really smooth, and they're really lightweight. So that's kind of why I choose them. But again, that's kind of a personal preference. Some other tires you could check out are something like the Specialized Ground Control, Fast Track, or Purgatory. Those are other really good tires. But again, just kind of experiment with kind of what you like and what type of terrain that you're going to be riding on. Personally, I dig Maxxis tires, so check those out too. Okay, so the last question that I'm going to answer for this week is kind of a long one, and it says, I want to do the PCT in 2018. I'm wondering how to charge my external battery. Due to financial reasons, I really don't want to spend much on hotel rooms, but that leaves the questions, where do I charge it, and what do I do with the 6 or so hours that it will take? Okay, so that's a really good question. Number one, I have to say that I know that you're trying to keep it within a budget and not stay in hotels and hostels, but just from experience, and if you've never done a through hike, I can tell you, even though you're not budgeting for that and you don't want to budget for it, you will want to stay in hotels and hostels. It is really hard after you've been hiking in the elements for 3 to 4 to 5 days on a stretch. You're cold, you're wet, you're hungry, you're hot, and coming to a place and not staying for the night. It's really hard to pass up a shower, a dry roof over your head, and some good food. So number one, I would actually suggest maybe upping your budget. If you're gonna hike, do it right. It is really hard to do a through hike on a hardcore budget. I've seen a lot of people's hikes be cut short because they didn't have enough money, or people that were getting really close to getting off the trail because they were running out of money. So just throwing that out there. If you want to try to stay in the woods as much as possible, great. Definitely try. If it's a budget thing, I would try to up your budget, because you will want to do that. And then obviously you can charge your stuff. Aside from that, another thing that you can do is whenever you do go into a town, regardless if you're going to stay or not, go into some place, ask if you can plug up your charger, and then take your time in town to do all the errands that you need to do, because you will need to resupply. You'll want to get some food, some actual town food, maybe make some phone calls. So trust me, there are a lot of things to do in a town whenever you get in there. Nobody really just kind of gets in and gets out. So just find a place as soon as you get into town, plug up your charger and get that taken care of. But like I said, take the opportunity to stay at things like hostels. Take advantage of that stuff, because you'll want to. And if you don't, you'll kind of drive yourself really down. It's good to take those breaks. It's good to stay in a hotel or a hostel every once in a while to get out of the elements and take a shower. It recharges your brain, it recharges your soul, so it's really good to do that. Like I said, there's a lot of people that don't think that they're going to, but then they end up doing it, especially if you start traveling with a group of other hikers, kind of a tramway. You will stay in places, you just will, just because it's good to get out of those elements. So number one, do that. Number two, if you are going to go into a town and not stay, first thing you do when you get into town is find a place to charge your external battery pack, and then go take care of all your errands, do as much running as you possibly can, get a bite to eat, do the things you have to do, and then come back, unplug it, and take off on the trail again. So hopefully that helps, and good luck with your planning for 2018. Hopefully I'll see you out there. Alright guys, so I'm going to keep doing these Q&As weekly, so if you have any questions for me, you can either leave them in the comment box below, or you can send me a video question over to darwinonthetrail@yahoo.com, and then if you do send me a video question, I will 100% feature you in next week's Q&A. So send me some of those. Nobody's been sending me any for a while, and I like having those video questions. It helps me interact with you, and I can feature you in my video. If you haven't got a chance yet, go over and check me out on Instagram. I'm posting a lot of new photos lately of some of the things that Snuggles and I have going on throughout the week. Go ahead and like or dislike this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and as always guys, thanks for watching.